The notification appeared at 3:47 a.m. Dubai time. Your post has reached 2.3 million views. Katrina Mendoza should have been celebrating. Instead, she was doubled over the marble sink of her luxury apartment bathroom, vomiting blood onto porcelain that cost more than her family's house in Quezon City. Her phone kept buzzing with comments, brand partnership offers, and messages from followers who had no idea they were watching someone's final hours play out in real time through carefully curated Instagram stories. The video that went viral was only 47 seconds long, sweeping shots of a private jet's interior, champagne glasses catching sunlight at 40,000 feet, Katrina's perfectly manicured hand gesturing toward leather seats embossed with a family crest she hadn't bothered to blur. "Living my best life," her caption read, with emojis depicting luxury, travel, and gratitude. What she didn't include in that caption, what she couldn't have known, was that the man who owned that jet had built his fortune on absolute control of his image, and that 47 seconds of unauthorized footage would trigger a response designed to send a message far beyond one Filipino influencer's death. Have you ever wondered what happens when social media visibility collides with cultures that value privacy above all else? When the currency of influence meets the economy of absolute discretion? Stay with us, because this isn't just about a girl who posted the wrong video. It's about how the same platforms that promise to democratize fame can become weapons in the hands of people who have never had to follow rules designed for ordinary humans. Part 1. The Girl Who Became a Brand. Katrina Mendoza was born in 1996 in Quezon City to parents who worked in the business process outsourcing industry. Her mother handling customer service calls for an American telecommunications company. Her father processing insurance claims for a UK firm. They were middle class by Philippine standards, which meant they could afford private school tuition if they sacrificed everything else, could eat meat with most meals, and could dream of upward mobility without it being complete fantasy. But middle class in Manila came with its own pressures. Katrina grew up surrounded by classmates whose families owned multiple properties, who vacationed in Singapore and Hong Kong, who wore uniforms that fit perfectly because they could afford tailoring. She learned early that appearance mattered more than reality, that projecting success was often more valuable than achieving it, and that the right image could open doors that credentials alone never would. She was beautiful in a way that transcended regional preferences, Spanish-influenced features inherited from her maternal grandmother, flawless skin that required minimal makeup, and most importantly, the kind of photogenic symmetry that made cameras love her from every angle. By 15, she was posting selfies on Facebook that garnered hundreds of likes. By 17, she'd migrated to Instagram and discovered that her life, carefully edited and strategically presented, could generate attention that felt like currency. Her followers multiplied through college, 5,000 by her second year studying communications at the University of the Philippines, 15,000 by graduation in 2017, 50,000 by the time she landed her first paid brand partnership with a local cosmetics company. The money wasn't life-changing, 10,000 pesos for an Instagram post featuring their lipstick, but it validated a business model that would consume the next 7 years of her life. Katrina understood something fundamental about the attention economy. Authenticity was a brand, not a reality. Her Instagram feed portrayed a life of effortless luxury, brunches at expensive cafes, boutique shopping trips, beach weekends at exclusive resorts. What her 50,000 followers didn't see was that the brunch was often her only meal that day, purchased specifically for its visual appeal and photographed from 10 different angles before she ate it cold. The boutique clothes were borrowed from friends or bought on credit cards she couldn't afford to pay off. The resort weekends were compensation for promotional posts, not leisure she could actually afford. Perception created reality. As her follower count grew, so did opportunities. Local brands wanted association with her aesthetic. Her engagement rates, the percentage of followers who liked and commented on her posts, hovered around 8%, nearly 3 times the industry average. She had mastered the algorithm, understanding that posting at 7:00 p.m. Manila time caught both local audiences finishing work and international Filipinos waking up in different time zones. By 2019, Katrina had 200,000 followers and was earning approximately 80,000 pesos monthly from brand partnerships, affiliate marketing, and sponsored content. It was more than her parents earned combined, achieved by converting her life into content and her personality into product. But the ceiling in the Philippines was visible. Local brands could only pay so much. The real money, the transformative wealth that could lift her entire family's circumstances permanently, existed overseas. Dubai appeared in her research like a promised land for influencers willing to adapt. The city's explosive growth between 2010 and 2020 had created an ecosystem where luxury brands, hotels, restaurants, and tourism entities desperately needed social media presence. They paid premium rates for influencers who could showcase Dubai's extravagance to international audiences. Filipino influencers, particularly attractive women who could code switch between relatable content for Southeast Asian audiences and aspirational luxury content for global followers, were in demand. The decision to move to Dubai came in early 2020, just before the pandemic transformed global mobility. Katrina secured a 6-month tourist visa, researched agencies that connected influencers with Dubai-based opportunities, and convinced her parents that this was investment in her career, not reckless adventure. She arrived in February 2020 with $3,000 in savings, a portfolio of her best content, and a determination to either succeed spectacularly or return home, having learned an expensive lesson about ambition's limits. Her timing proved both fortunate and catastrophic. The pandemic lockdowns that began in March 2020 trapped her in Dubai just as international travel collapsed. But those same lockdowns created unprecedented social media consumption as isolated people worldwide sought digital connection and escapist content. Katrina pivoted brilliantly, creating content about lockdown luxury in Dubai, showcasing her budget apartment as though it were a palace, cooking simple meals presented as gourmet creations, and documenting home workouts that highlighted both fitness and carefully chosen athletic wear from sponsor brands. Her follower count exploded, 500,000 by June 2020, 800,000 by December, crossing the crucial 1 million threshold in March 2021. That million-follower milestone transformed everything. Brands began approaching her rather than vice versa. Hotels offered complimentary stays in exchange for content. Restaurants provided free meals for Instagram coverage. She was invited to exclusive events, yacht parties, and private gatherings where Dubai's elite and the influencer ecosystem intersected. It was at one of these events, a product launch for a luxury watch brand at the Atlantis Hotel in May 2021, that Katrina first encountered the world that would ultimately kill her. The party was carefully curated. 150 influencers, celebrities, and wealthy socialites gathered to celebrate timepieces that cost more than most cars. Katrina wore a borrowed dress, carried a rented clutch, and projected the confidence of someone who belonged in spaces defined by obscene wealth. She was photographing the event's champagne tower when a man's voice, speaking English with an Emirati accent polished by British education, interrupted her concentration. "You have an excellent eye for composition," he said. "Most people photograph the obvious. You found the light reflecting through the glasses. That's artistry." Katrina turned to find a man in his early 40s, traditionally dressed in a white kandjara, with a face that suggested both intelligence and the kind of boredom that came from having experienced everything money could buy. His watch, she noticed because noticing such details had become professional necessity, was a limited edition Patek Philippe worth approximately $850,000. "Thank you," she replied, her smile calibrated for polite interest without excessive enthusiasm. "I've learned that the best content comes from finding unexpected beauty in expected places." "A philosopher and an artist," the man said, his smile suggesting he found her packaging exactly as appealing as her aesthetics. "I'm Rashid, and you are someone I should probably already follow on Instagram, which means I'm culturally behind." They talked for 30 minutes, a conversation that felt organic but was actually carefully managed from both sides. Rashid was clearly wealthy enough to render normal social dynamics irrelevant. Katrina was clearly strategic enough to recognize opportunity while maintaining the appearance of genuine interest. He asked about her background, her content strategy, her ambitions. She provided carefully edited versions of her life that emphasized hustle and creativity, while omitting desperation and calculation. When they parted, Rashid had her Instagram handle and a promise that he'd reach out if any opportunities arose within his network. Katrina assumed she'd never hear from him again. Wealthy men collected Instagram handles like business cards, rarely following through on vague promises of connection. She was wrong. The message arrived 3 days later. "I'm hosting a private dinner tomorrow evening. Intimate gathering, interesting people, excellent opportunity to network with potential brand partners. Would you join us?" The invitation came with a car service that would collect her, a dress sent by courier in her exact size, and an address in Emirates Hills that suggested wealth operating at levels she'd only glimpsed from carefully controlled distances. If you're wondering why someone as strategic as Katrina would accept such an invitation without deeper investigation, remember that the influencer economy runs on access. Every successful content creator has faced moments where opportunity and risk become indistinguishable. The dinner party could be legitimate networking. It could be something darker. But turning down chances meant watching other influencers occupy spaces you'd rejected. Katrina accepted the invitation and stepped through a door that would ultimately lead to her death, though the path would take 2 years and involve secrets she couldn't have imagined that evening in May 2021. Part 2, The World Behind the Camera. The dinner party took place at a private estate that redefined Katrina's understanding of wealth. The villa sprawled across grounds so extensive that she couldn't see property boundaries, surrounded by gardens that required what must have been a full-time team to maintain in Dubai's hostile climate. The interior was a careful blend of traditional Emirati design and contemporary luxury, hand-woven carpets from Iran, contemporary art that Katrina recognized from recent auction headlines, furniture that looked custom-made for spaces designed around specific pieces. But what struck her most was the absolute privacy. No photographs were permitted inside the residence. Security at the entrance had politely confiscated phones, providing numbered receipts and assurances that devices would be returned upon departure. For someone whose livelihood depended on documenting experiences, the enforced disconnection felt both liberating and unsettling. The guest list consisted of approximately 20 people, wealthy Emiratis, European expats holding executive positions in multinational corporations, and a carefully curated selection of influencers and models who provided aesthetic diversity. Katrina recognized 2 Filipino influencers she'd met at previous events, along with Russian, Lebanese, and Brazilian women whose Instagram accounts suggested similar trajectories. Beautiful, strategic, and positioned at the intersection of content creation and access to extreme wealth. Rashid proved to be an attentive host, introducing Katrina to guests with descriptions that emphasized her creativity and business acumen rather than just her appearance. He connected her with the marketing director of a luxury hotel chain, with the social media strategist for a high-end real estate developer, with people who could translate her Instagram following into contracts worth exponentially more than local brand partnerships. Over the following months, Katrina became a regular presence at these gatherings. The pattern was consistent. Invitations would arrive via WhatsApp, car service would collect her, phones would be confiscated at the door, and she would spend evenings networking with people whose casual conversation mentioned property portfolios, private jets, and business deals measured in hundreds of millions of dirhams. She was careful to maintain professional boundaries. When wealthy men offered private meetings with implications that made their intentions clear, she declined politely but firmly. When opportunities arose that felt transactional in ways that crossed her personal lines, she found diplomatic exits. Katrina understood that her brand depended on being aspirational but not available, visible but not vulnerable, connected to luxury without being consumed by it. Her Instagram content during this period reflected carefully managed access. She posted about the hotels where she stayed, the restaurants where she dined, the events she attended, but never about the private gatherings at Rashid's estate or the homes of other wealthy individuals who valued discretion above all else. She learned to navigate the unspoken rule. Public luxury could be photographed and shared, but private wealth demanded absolute confidentiality. By late 2022, Katrina had 1.8 million Instagram followers and was earning approximately $15,000 USD monthly through brand partnerships, sponsored content, and consultation fees. She'd moved from her budget apartment to a proper one-bedroom in Dubai Marina. She was sending money home to her parents monthly, covering her younger brother's university tuition, and actually saving for the first time in her adult life. But the economics of her lifestyle remained precarious. The apartment cost $3,500 monthly. Maintaining her appearance, Hair, nails, skincare, gym membership, wardrobe updates consumed another $2,000. Food, transportation, visa fees, and other necessities added another $1,500. After sending $2,000 home to her family, she had approximately $6,000 monthly in earnings, supporting $9,000 in expenses. The gap filled by leveraging her growing follower count for complimentary services and strategically delayed payments on credit cards. She needed a breakthrough, a contract, partnership, or opportunity that would transform her from successful influencer to genuinely secure businesswoman. That breakthrough seemingly arrived in January 2023, when Rashid approached her with an unusual proposal. "I'm organizing a private investment summit," he explained during one of his dinner parties. 20 high-net-worth individuals from the Gulf region discussing portfolio strategies and emerging opportunities. We want someone to document the event, not for public consumption, but for private archive and selective sharing with participants. The content needs to be sophisticated, professional, capturing the gravitas of serious business discussion rather than typical event photography. "You want me to work as your event photographer?" Katrina asked, uncertain whether this represented opportunity or demotion. "I want you to work as our content strategist and documenter. 3-day summit, $25,000 fee, with the understanding that nothing you capture can be shared publicly without explicit written consent. Consider it private commission rather than social media content. Interested?" $25,000 for 3 days of work would solve her immediate financial pressures and provide runway to be more selective about brand partnerships. But the emphasis on privacy and control raised questions about what she'd actually be documenting. "What's the subject of this summit?" she asked carefully. "Investment diversification strategies across multiple sectors, real estate, technology, commodities. Nothing illegal or scandalous, Katrina. Simply wealthy individuals discussing how to become wealthier, who prefer those conversations remain private rather than becoming content for public consumption." She accepted the commission and spent 3 days in February 2023 documenting conversations, presentations, and networking sessions that introduced her to a world she'd only observed from carefully controlled distances. The participants were worth hundreds of millions or billions, their discussions involving sums that made her annual income seem like rounding errors. But what struck her most was the casual nature of their power. These men, all men, she noted, discussed influencing government policies, acquiring competitors, and restructuring entire industries with the same tone others might use to discuss weekend plans. They operated in a reality where money didn't just buy things. It bought outcomes, systems, and ultimately people. Katrina fulfilled her contract professionally, delivering edited content that captured the summit's substance while making participants look appropriately authoritative and sophisticated. Rashid was pleased enough to pay a $5,000 bonus beyond the agreed fee, with promises of future collaborations. But she kept certain files, not the official deliverables, but raw footage that included moments participants probably assumed would be deleted. Conversations conducted in Arabic that she'd had translated later through a Syrian colleague, casual comments about regulatory capture and strategic influence, and most significantly, several minutes of footage from inside Rashid's private jet during a short flight to Abu Dhabi for one summit session. The jet footage was spectacular from a content perspective, the kind of luxury lifestyle material her followers craved. Shots of the aircraft's interior, its custom details, its emblems and insignia suggesting ownership by someone of tremendous wealth and status. Katrina had filmed it with vague intention of perhaps using it someday with permission, or as portfolio material demonstrating her ability to capture luxury lifestyle content. She never intended to post it publicly. But in May 2023, facing a particularly difficult month where brand partnerships had been delayed and expenses were accumulating faster than income, Katrina made a decision that would cost her everything. She edited the jet footage into a 47-second video, carefully removing any faces and blurring the family crest embossed on the leather seats, or so she thought. She added trendy music, inspirational captions about manifesting dreams and working hard, and posted it to Instagram with hashtags designed to maximize reach. Luxury lifestyle, Dubai life, luxury travel, manifestation, dream big. The video performed beyond her expectations, reaching 2.3 million views within 24 hours, generating thousands of new followers and attracting inquiry messages from luxury brands interested in partnership. Katrina watched the metrics climb with satisfaction, viewing the video's success as validation of her content instincts. What she didn't see, what she couldn't have known, was that within hours of posting, the video had been identified by people who recognized details she'd failed to obscure. The jet's specific interior configuration, particular design elements unique to its owner, and most damning, partial visibility of the family crest in one brief frame before the blur effect activated. The jet belonged to Sheikh Hamdan Al-Mazrui, not Rashid. Rashid was Hamdan's nephew, someone who borrowed family resources while lacking the discretion that came from actually building an empire rather than inheriting access to one. And Sheikh Hamdan Al-Mazrui had built his substantial fortune on absolute privacy, on operating in shadows that allowed maximum freedom from scrutiny, and on ensuring that nobody, family, employees, or foreign influencers, exposed any aspect of his private world without explicit, carefully negotiated permission. The message arrived via WhatsApp at 11:47 p.m. on the day Katrina posted the video. Unknown number, brief text. Remove the video immediately. You have violated confidentiality agreements you didn't know you'd signed. Remove it now or face consequences you cannot imagine. Katrina stared at the message, her stomach clenching with anxiety that quickly transformed into defiance. She'd blurred the crest, removed faces, created content that thousands of influencers posted daily. She hadn't signed any confidentiality agreement for the jet footage. Her contract had covered the investment summit only, and that content remained private as agreed. She typed a response. The video has been edited to remove identifying information. I believe I've been respectful of privacy while sharing general lifestyle content. The reply came within seconds. You believe incorrectly. Your understanding of the situation is dangerously incomplete. Remove the video or face immediate deportation and legal action that will bankrupt your family for generations. The threat was specific enough to terrify her, but the video had already generated so much engagement that removing it would raise questions from followers and potentially damage relationships with brands responding to its success. Katrina made a calculation that influencers make constantly: the risk of retaliation versus the value of maintaining momentum. She left the video posted and sealed her fate with that decision. Part 3, the formula of disappearance. The poisoning was methodical, sophisticated, and designed to appear like natural causes that wouldn't trigger investigation. It began with a delivery to Katrina's apartment the morning after she'd ignored the warning message. A gift basket from a grateful brand partner, containing luxury chocolates, exotic teas, skincare products, and a bottle of premium vitamin supplements with a note. For the influencer who deserves the best, thank you for your partnership. There was no return address, no brand name beyond a generic Dubai luxury collective that sounded plausible enough. Katrina, accustomed to receiving product samples and gifts from brands, thought nothing of it. She posted a grateful Instagram story thanking her amazing partners and opened the vitamin bottle that evening, taking 2 capsules with her dinner. The supplements contained a carefully calibrated mixture of compounds designed to cause progressive organ failure that would mimic natural disease. The primary agent was a slow-acting toxin derived from heavy metals, administered in doses low enough to avoid immediate detection, but sufficient to cause cumulative damage over days. Secondary compounds included substances that would interfere with standard toxicology screens, creating diagnostic confusion even if doctors suspected poisoning. Within 48 hours, Katrina began experiencing symptoms: nausea, fatigue, abdominal cramping. She attributed it to stress and perhaps food poisoning from a restaurant meal. She continued taking the vitamins, believing they would help her recover. Each dose accelerated her deterioration. By day 4, she was vomiting regularly, experiencing severe headaches, and noticing bruising appearing across her arms and legs without explanation. Her phone was filled with concerned messages from followers who noticed her absence from Instagram stories. The first time in 2 years, she'd gone more than 24 hours without posting. "Are you okay?" her mother asked during their weekly video call. "You look pale." "Just fighting some bug," Katrina replied, forcing brightness into her voice. "Dubai changes seasons are harsh. I'll be fine in a few days." But she wasn't fine. By day 6, she could barely stand without dizziness. The bruising had spread across her entire body. She was experiencing bleeding from her gums and nose, signs of coagulation problems that would have alarmed any medical professional. Katrina finally went to a clinic on day 7, by which point the toxins had caused sufficient damage that reversal would require identification of specific compounds and immediate aggressive treatment. The clinic doctor, seeing a relatively young foreign woman with vague symptoms, diagnosed viral infection and prescribed rest, fluids, and over-the-counter medication. She returned to her apartment and continued taking the vitamins, not connecting the supplements to her deteriorating condition. The poisoning had been designed precisely to exploit this gap in causation. Symptoms vague enough to attribute to common illness, progression gradual enough to avoid immediate crisis that would trigger comprehensive testing. By day 10, Katrina was too weak to leave her apartment. She'd stopped posting entirely, her last Instagram story showing a pale face with a weak smile and a caption, "Taking a few days to rest and recharge. Be back soon with amazing content read." That same day, a cleaning service arrived at her apartment. She hadn't scheduled any cleaning, but the woman at her door explained that building management had arranged complimentary service for select units. Too exhausted to question this, Katrina let them in. The cleaning crew spent 2 hours in her apartment. They removed the gift basket, the vitamin bottle, and any evidence of the poisoning source. They photographed her medicine cabinet, her personal documents, and her laptop while she dozed on the couch. They were thorough, professional, and gone by the time she woke from her nap, leaving her apartment spotless and stripped of evidence. On day 12, Katrina woke at 3:47 a.m. vomiting blood. She managed to call emergency services before losing consciousness. She was transported to Rashid Hospital, where doctors initially suspected a severe gastrointestinal infection or potentially dengue fever, common enough in Dubai to warrant consideration. But the emergency room physician, Dr. Sarah Khalid, noticed inconsistencies in Katrina's presentation. The pattern of bruising suggested coagulation disorder. The organ function tests revealed multi-system failure, and most concerning, the patient's history of sudden deterioration following what should have been a minor illness. "Has she been exposed to any toxins?" Dr. Khalid asked the paramedics who'd transported Katrina. "This looks like poisoning, but I can't determine the agent without more information." The paramedics had no additional information. Katrina's apartment had been searched by the cleaning crew, her phone was password protected, and she was now unconscious and unable to provide history. Dr. Khalid ordered comprehensive toxicology screening, but the tests available at Rashid Hospital had limitations. They could detect common poisons but not sophisticated combinations designed specifically to evade standard protocols. Katrina died at 6:23 a.m. on May 14, 2023, 13 days after posting the video of Sheikh Hamdan Al-Mazrui's private jet. The official cause of death was listed as acute liver failure of unknown etiology, with contributing factors including possible viral infection and potential toxic exposure. No definitive poisoning was identified because the specific compounds used weren't included in standard testing panels. Her phone was lost during the ambulance transport, according to official records. Her laptop was stolen from her apartment during the 48 hours between her hospitalization and death, according to a police report filed by her building's security. The gift basket, vitamin bottle, and any physical evidence that could have revealed the poisoning method had been removed by the cleaning crew days earlier. The message had been sent clearly to anyone paying attention: cross the wrong people in Dubai, and you disappear. Not dramatically, not obviously, but through processes that look like natural causes or explainable accidents. Part 4. The aftermath nobody talks about. The news of Katrina Mendoza's death reached her parents in Quezon City through a phone call from the Philippine Embassy in Abu Dhabi. Her mother, receiving the news while preparing dinner, collapsed from shock. Her father, a man who'd worked double shifts for decades to provide his children opportunities, sat in silence for 3 hours, unable to process that his eldest child, his smart, ambitious daughter who'd conquered Dubai's impossible social landscape, was gone at 27 years old. The official story was neat, tragic, and ultimately unsatisfying. Promising young Filipino influencer succumbs to sudden illness while pursuing her dreams overseas. Dubai's English-language newspapers ran brief obituaries. Her Instagram account became a memorial, followers posting crying emojis and messages about how she'd inspired them, never knowing that the video that had brought her death remained pinned at the top of her feed. But whispers circulated through Dubai's Filipino community, passed between domestic workers, nurses, and other influencers who understood that Katrina's death fit a pattern they'd seen before. Foreign women who crossed invisible lines, who posted restricted content, who threatened the carefully maintained privacy of powerful families. They had ways of disappearing that looked natural enough to avoid international incident. She posted something she shouldn't have, one Filipino influencer told another during a whispered conversation at Katrina's memorial service held at Dubai's Philippine church. Everyone knows you don't photograph private jets, private homes, or private anything without explicit permission. The video was beautiful, but it cost her everything. Katrina's family pushed for investigation, contacted Philippine government officials, and hired an attorney who specialized in overseas worker deaths. But the obstacles were immediate and insurmountable. Katrina's body had been embalmed before the family could request independent autopsy. Her apartment had been cleaned and rented to new tenants within a week of her death, and all her electronic devices containing potential evidence had vanished. The attorney's assessment was blunt. Without physical evidence, without access to her devices, without witnesses willing to testify, we have no case. The death certificate lists natural causes. Dubai authorities have no reason to pursue further investigation. I'm sorry, but justice in cases like this requires resources and diplomatic pressure that most Filipino families simply cannot access. The Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs issued a statement expressing condolences and assuring Katrina's family that they would monitor the situation. But monitoring produced no results beyond confirming that Dubai authorities considered the case closed. The $47,000 in Katrina's Dubai bank accounts was frozen pending resolution of outstanding debts, apartment lease, credit cards, and various fees that mysteriously appeared after her death. By the time the estate was settled, her family received approximately $8,000, barely enough to cover repatriation of her body and funeral expenses. Her Instagram account continued growing even after her death, reaching 2 million followers within a month as people discovered her story. Brands continued reaching out with partnership offers, unaware that the account's owner was deceased. The viral video of the private jet remained posted, a digital gravestone marking the moment when content creation became deadly. But the most haunting aspect of Katrina's death was how quickly it was forgotten. Within 3 months, other influencers were posting from the same hotels, attending the same events, and creating the same luxury lifestyle content that had defined her career. The lesson of her disappearance, that some access comes with invisible prices, was absorbed and promptly ignored by a new generation of content creators willing to risk everything for viral moments and brand partnerships. Sheikh Hamdan Al-Mazrui never publicly commented on Katrina's death. His name appeared nowhere in official records related to her case. But his private jet received new interior customization in July 2023, removing the specific design elements that Katrina's video had captured. The family crest was redesigned entirely, ensuring that even if someone did photograph it in future, they wouldn't be photographing the same identifiable emblem. Rashid Al-Mazrui continued hosting his private dinner parties, inviting new influencers to network with Dubai's elite. But the rules became more explicit. Devices confiscated at the door, NDAs signed before entry, and regular reminders that discretion wasn't just appreciated, it was required for survival. Epilogue, the economy of silence. In November 2023, 6 months after Katrina's death, a small article appeared in a Philippine online news site. Family of deceased Dubai influencer struggles with debt. The story explained that Katrina's parents had exhausted their savings trying to investigate their daughter's death, had accumulated debt from attorney fees, and were now facing loss of their home. The article generated brief social media attention. Some followers donated small amounts to a fundraising page. Others shared the story with expressions of sympathy and outrage. But within a week, the news cycle moved on. Katrina Mendoza became another cautionary tale about the dangers of chasing influencer fame in foreign countries, her death reduced to a data point in discussions about overseas worker vulnerability. Her Instagram account remained active, managed by her younger brother who posted occasional memorial messages and photos of Katrina from happier times. The account's bio was updated to include, "Forever 27, her light continues through the lives she touched." But the pinned video, The 47-second clip of the private jet that had triggered her death remained posted because removing it would require accessing account settings that her family didn't fully understand. That video has now been viewed over 15 million times. People watching it have no idea they're seeing evidence of a murder disguised as natural death. They see luxury, aspiration, and the kind of lifestyle content that fills their feeds daily. They don't see the cleaning crew that removed evidence, the sophisticated poisoning that evaded standard toxicology, or the systematic erasure of a young woman whose only crime was failing to recognize that some images cost more than others. The influencer economy continues booming in Dubai. Young women from the Philippines, Russia, Eastern Europe, and South America still arrive monthly, armed with smartphones and dreams of converting beauty into security. They post their breakfasts, their workouts, their sunset views, and their carefully edited glimpses of luxury. Most will return home after visa expirations, no richer than when they arrived. Some will succeed in building genuine careers. And a very few, will cross invisible lines they didn't know existed and disappear in ways that generate brief headlines before being forgotten entirely. The lesson of Katrina Mendoza's death isn't complicated. In economies built on image, control of that image is worth more than individual lives. The wealthy didn't become wealthy by allowing others to define their narratives. They built empires through ruthless protection of privacy, strategic deployment of power, and absolute intolerance for exposure they didn't authorize. Katrina wanted to build something from nothing, using the only resources available to her: beauty, creativity, and willingness to hustle in spaces that promised transformation. She played by the rules she understood: create content, grow followers, convert attention into income. What she didn't understand was that some spaces operate by rules never explained, where violations result not in warnings or lawsuits, but in disappearances designed to send messages without generating evidence. Her final Instagram post, written 3 days before her death when she was already desperately ill, read, "Sometimes the path to your dreams requires walking through darkness. Trust the journey, even when you can't see where it leads." The irony of those words, their unintentional prophecy, haunts everyone who knew her. The darkness she walked through wasn't metaphorical. It was actual material administered in vitamin capsules and carried out by professionals who'd done this before and would likely do it again. If you're still watching this investigation, subscribe and share this story, because Katrina Mendoza's death wasn't an isolated tragedy. It's part of a systematic pattern of silencing that happens when ordinary people with smartphones accidentally expose what powerful people want hidden. Her video has been viewed over 15 million times now, by people who have no idea they're watching evidence of murder. Remember her name, share her story, and understand that behind every perfect Instagram feed documenting luxury in Dubai, there might be someone who hasn't yet realized they're being photographed for their funeral rather than their future. The 47-second video remains pinned to her account. Sheikh Hamdan Al-Mazrui's jet still flies across Middle Eastern skies. And somewhere in Dubai, another young influencer is editing photos from a private event, about to post something that powerful people believe should remain hidden. The algorithm doesn't care who dies. It only cares about engagement. And Katrina's death has proven excellent for engagement, which is perhaps the darkest joke of all. Rest in power, Katrina Mendoza. Your light was extinguished, but your story refuses to die.